So are you just starting your journey to move to Costa Rica? Well, let me give you my top 10 don'ts you need to know before you ever even get started. So right off the list, it may sound weird, is don't make your plans too far out. Many people come and say, you see them on Facebook and different other forums, is like, oh, in 5 years, I'm going to be in Costa Rica. In 10 years, I'm coming to Costa Rica. Well, the problem with that is, how many times have you completed your New Year's resolution or you've given up by March? So if you have a hard time keeping with something for 3 months and you really don't have a reason for the 5 years or the 10-year mark, and it's something as, oh, when my kids graduate and they graduate, those things rarely happen, because if you're waiting for your kids are going to have kids and you'll be waiting for them to graduate and things won't happen. So you don't want to start your plans to move, to Costa Rica very far out. Honestly, I would recommend, if you're ready under a year, preferably 6 to 9 months, that is kind of a sweet spot that I see the pattern, like you're ready to go. And so that means that you have things to do and it's going to set you on a pace that will allow you to leave. Number 2 on the list is don't come to Costa Rica if you're just running from something, especially if that something is changeable. So whether it be presidential elections or something internal such as stress or anxiety, if those things can be fixed in the United States, it's probably better that you do so, especially if that's your only reason for leaving. Because if there's something, even as the president, in 4 to 8 years, that reason is going to change. And so you're going to be like, well, I've moved to a completely different country. I have to learn new customs, learn the language, and oh, this is too hard. And if your go-to button is to run when you feel uncomfortable, then you're going to feel uncomfortable in Costa Rica and begin to run again. The other thing that may happen is, if your go-to is to run when things get uncomfortable, you may just sit here and say, okay, well, now that here I'm in Costa Rica and here's a problem, things have to change. And again, you'll find yourself frustrated. So instead of having those bad things to happen in Costa Rica, in your dream, you need to actually have a better and clearer reason for actually leaving the country. Number 3, don't assume Costa Rica is like the United States. Obviously, the reason why you're leaving the United States is you were looking for something different. But that doesn't mean that you can pick and choose which things that you want to find different. Costa Rica is its own country, its own entity, and it has its own personality. And again, as I just said, different doesn't mean bad, it just means different. And if you try to recreate the United States in Costa Rica, after a while, it will get very expensive, the bubble will bust, and your plans will fail. So I recommend adapting to the Costa Rican culture as much as possible and getting used to some things that are just different and enjoy the ride. Don't come without some good planning and a good budget. And yes, I do recommend Quicken, even though I do get a percentage if you actually buy the product. But not because of that, because honestly, I've been using it before I even knew about that program. It actually helped me to be able to budget to get here and to actually take some time off and say, oh, you can afford this. Also, it helped me when I got myself in financial trouble while I was here. This tool helps you see the future. It looks at your spending habits and you can actually see, okay, I'm going to be in trouble and here's some of the things I need to do. Unfortunately, while there's a lot of tools on the market, most of them just tell you about the past. Once it's too late, yes, you spent all your money, go home. No, you need something that says, okay, if you keep spending like this, then you're going to have to make some drastic adjustments. And that's definitely crucial when you're thousands of miles away from home. You really want to see what's coming up, and those things shouldn't be a surprise. And number 5 is don't come without a clear why. And I really wanted to put that for number 1, but I want to mix it up a little bit. The reason why that I keep harping on this is because if your why is shallow and you're saying stuff like the beach and that's it, that means that, when things get hard, it's going to be like, well, why didn't I go to another beach in the United States or in France or any other part of the world that has beaches? And so you're going to ask yourself, and you're going to say, I don't know. And you're going to pull out when things get hard. There's going to be challenges no matter where you go in the world, because we live on Earth. And so if you do not have a good why of being in Costa Rica, you'll find yourself coming up short and leaving after spending so much money and wasting your time. Number 6 would be, don't come if you don't have a changing mindset. If you don't have any flexibility in your mindset to adapt, Costa Rica is going to be dang near impossible to stay, because Costa Rica is different. There is a lot of stuff that I love, but it's completely different than what I'm used to, even from the United States. So whether it's from the food or the sites or how long it takes to get from point A to B, there's things that I just have to get used to. And so if a lot of people come down here for, because things are slower, or so they think, and it's like, oh, well, why is the line slow? Why am I standing an hour and a half in a bank line? And so those things, you have to say, okay, well, it is different, and I'm going to have to change. Costa Rica is not going to change. I am going to have to be the one to change. And so a lot of people don't do that, and they get frustrated because you're essentially fighting a brick wall, and you may end up just going back disappointed that Costa Rica has let you down, when in reality, it is you that are going to have to change to adapt to this new lifestyle. The number 7 is big, especially if you're married, because it is about communication. Don't come if you don't have good communication with your spouse. And what I mean by that, you might have been watching my videos, understanding the why, understanding budget, understanding what you have to do. But if you don't communicate that, or if your spouse doesn't quite get it or understand it or even agree, then you're going to find yourself leaving after a few years, because it's going to be like, your spouse is not happy. And if they go back, then you're going to go back, no matter how wonderful you think Costa Rica is. And so that is one thing that I would recommend that you head off in the beginning, before you even start the journey. Is your wife or your husband on board with coming to Costa Rica and living in such a way? Yes, it's going to adapt and change time after time, but you want to start on the right foot. Don't come if you haven't visited. And so, because my videos are focused to people who are moving and wanting to live to Costa Rica, I have to say this. You got to visit and see it for yourself. You can only go so far with online, media. If you're looking at social media, getting opinions of others, they're just that. They're just opinions. And so when someone says it's too hot, too cold, to, whatever, you actually have to see it for yourself, because you may find that you enjoy what someone else doesn't like. Honestly, there's a lot of talk between, whether, should move to the beach or go to Central Valley, and whatever it is, that particular circumstance is only something that you're going to see once you get your boots on the ground. So I definitely recommend coming, visiting, even if it's more than once, to see if Costa Rica is for you. Costa Rica is not for everybody, and that's okay. Even if you come and visit and you're like, oh, this is not for me, that's okay. So don't feel bad one way or the other. It is better for you to know before you pack up everything, sell everything, and, commit so hard to Costa Rica without actually, visiting, and then have to turn around, to actually know ahead, like, oh, this is going to be different and I can't live with, or my spouse won't be able to live with that differences. There are some things that you'll have to actually figure out. And some things, while they can be solved with a plan, like, how do I see my grandkids? Well, plan for them to come. Or things like, well, I don't want to ever miss the moment. Well, then maybe Costa Rica is not for you during this time, or maybe it's not for you at all, because again, kids grow up and they have kids. And so if you want to be, in that particular situation, that's fine. That's your journey. And realize that Costa Rica just may be a visiting place for you and not a place where you end up living. And number 10, I want you guys to realize, don't come thinking that this is the end all be all. Costa Rica is just a new journey in your life. Whether you move to a different state in the United States, which is a different journey, move to a different job. These things in your life allow you to grow and to do something different. So when you get to Costa Rica, don't just like, oh, I'm done. We're not going to do anything. We're living in a bubble. No, it's still part of life's journey, which if you take it in that perspective, then when you run into something that is unfamiliar, then you're like, oh, well, this is part of the journey. Everything's going to be okay. If you come from it with that perspective versus, if this is a challenge and this is wrong because it's not like the United States, it is a different perspective that you need to remember. It is all part of a journey. So if you want to learn more about how you can actually develop a plan to move to Costa Rica, I want you to check out this video right here. And until then, I will see you on the other side.